Okay, thanks, Claudio. Okay, so when moving over to SaaS, the way that you license the solution has changed. It's moved over to subscription licensing on a price per named user per month. So no longer are there concurrent users. Every user is a named user now. Subscription pricing also means that you pay per user per month as well. So essentially you are paying for the licenses again. However, Microsoft does allow clients who are up to date on their nav maintenance to have a 40% discount. Now there's two levels of licensing available. You can sort of compare it to the current licensing that you have of full and limited users. However, the functionality available for those two are slightly different. So premium is a full user, anybody that needs to post anything basically. Team member licenses, they're very limited in their functionality. They're mainly there for approving and for viewing as well. There are some additional functionalities, but it is very limited and there's no kind of standard rule for those. So we prefer to keep it quite clean in the way that you would access dependent on who needs to access it. And these are conversations that we can have to help you kind of decide that as well. Now, the subscription pricing does cover many things, and this is why you can't really do a direct comparison to perpetual concurrent users, because the subscription licensing for software as a service covers many things. So for a start, it includes the Microsoft enhancements, so any kind of hot fixes in there. And as Claudia was saying, those waves that occur every 6 months, they're automatic and they're included in there. So you can kind of wave goodbye to costly upgrades every 3 to 5+ years now. It automatically happens every 6 months. As Claudio did say, we are aware of what that is. And so any development or anything else that you have, any integrations, we're aware of those, and testing can be done to make sure that those are all going to be working fine with these updates. Now, the solution is hosted on Microsoft's Azure environment, and they do offer all the other things that you would expect from hosting. So these will be the backups and disaster recovery, obviously the server and the database maintenance as well. That's all managed within the cloud. Now, the way that the solution is accessed is via a web browser only. So there's no more Windows client. And the Business Central solution with Bevica is actually an app within Office 365 as well. So what that means is that is the way that you actually go into the solution via Office 365. Now, because it is web browser based, it does also mean that you can access it from anywhere. If you've got a Mac, if you've got a phone or a tablet, it's very easy for access on the go as well. What the access also gives you is one production database and a maximum of 3 test databases as well. If you want to move over to the next slide, Claudio.
Yep.
Now, because you are going through Office 365 in order to access the SaaS solution, the way that TVision is allowed to manage that environment for you means that you have to agree for us to be a cloud service provider. Now, this doesn't mean we're managing your Office 365 environment. We're not at all. But in order for TVision to be able to purchase the license through QBS, who's our license distributor, manage your licenses and manage your environments, and also manage the updates, the waves that come every 6 months, you have to agree for us to be a cloud service provider or solution provider, and we do need to have global Office 365 admin access. Now, I know this is a contentious issue, and there are ways that we can still be able to manage and implement for you if that's not allowed. I do have an FAQ if anybody wants to see that, to look at the options, but I'd just like to let everybody know up front that we do need that access. We have looked in with Microsoft for all the reasons why. So we have explored all of those options. There isn't anything limited. It has to be global. But like I said, there are some options that we can have if that is definitely not going to be allowed. So it's worth having a look at that information beforehand anyway. Now, on the security side, in order for you to kind of have a look to understand what activity is being done within your environment, what happens is that there is a monitoring section in the Azure Active Directory Admin Center, which has audit logs in there. So like I said, you know, if QBS and has done anything regarding, you know, the kind of the licensing, or if we have done anything on the environment, you'll be able to see that. Now, the actual environment, as we said, you're on the Microsoft cloud, and so therefore when you install the solution, you are agreeing to Microsoft's cloud environment. Claudio's put a link on there as well, and that will give you lots of other information onto there. For example, it will let you know about the database backups that you have. They're carried out weekly by Microsoft. Differential database backups are down hourly, and transaction backups are down every 5 minutes. Then the automatic backups are retained for 14 days. Clients do have the ability to download a database export file, and additionally, this does provide a way for you to download the file locally in order to import it into a local database if required. Now, the amount of gig you have available on the Azure hosted database is 80. But you can, if you need to have additional space, you can purchase more as well. Okay, that's me.
Okay, so there were just a couple of other moving over to SaaS practicalities that I just wanted to cover. So from a technical point of view, there's no object designer anymore. So those of you who are a little bit more technical, who are used to going to the object designer, that's disappearing. The ability for you to manipulate or change pages, reports and things becomes a lot more difficult because you don't have the development environment installed on your network, if you like, that like we would at our place. It's not impossible, but it becomes a bit more difficult. And then because the SQL server, the Azure SQL server is managed by Microsoft, there's no access, there's no direct access to it. You can still access the data, you can extract the data, you can look at the data, but you can't use, you can't run SQL scripts, for example, to look at data or manipulate data. In terms of how we would run a project from enterprise to SaaS, they would be re-implementations. The structures, whilst they're very, very similar, they're different enough that we can't easily just migrate all the data from one to the other. And really, we think we'd take this as an opportunity to clean up older systems, decide what functionality we do want and we don't want. And to do that, the assumption is that we would start with Bevica SaaS as the product. Anything that would have been in the standard product that's not in Bevica SaaS, we will move over to Bevica SaaS for you to have access to. And then any bespoke work that you need in the new system, that would be moved over to Bevica SaaS. So the idea is that you would have a new system. I can't guarantee that it'll work 100% in the same way, but the principles, the business principles would still work, and you'd be able to run the processes that you currently do. So for that reason, we would move across open balances rather than all the historic data. We have designed places in the new Bevica to store, for example, sales history from either previous versions or other systems, and that would merge into some of the history that's in the product. So up to now, we've talked about SaaS as being the obvious upgrade, and that's definitely what we would recommend. But there is an alternative called the hybrid model, or basically it's an on-premise model. So what we can do with Bevica SaaS is we can install the app on the SaaS environment that Microsoft provide us, or we can install it alongside the base Microsoft app on a on-premise server. So basically that means that you would have an on-premise version of Bevica SaaS. It wouldn't have all the links and functionality, or as easy links and easy functionality than if you were in the real SaaS environment. But if you're worried about, I don't know, things that we mentioned like performance or database size or just access to your own data, there is an alternative that we can talk through if we need to. But our starting point for all of this is the SaaS model. We'd like to get everyone on the SaaS model, and then if there's a reason not to, we can investigate the on-premise version.